I'll be speaking later on to Dr. Susan Lim, who is a retired surgeon and pioneer in the fields of transplantation, robotics and stem cell research, talking about this Lim Fantasy of Companionship for Piano and Orchestra, which really explores the intersection between technology and music. And anybody who knows me knows I love a bit of technology and definitely knows I love music as well. So I'm looking forward to that conversation too. So this coming Wednesday brings an evening of rhapsody, romance and fantasy to Cadogan Hall. Featuring the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra and Mark Bebbington on piano, it will showcase the UK premiere of the Lim Fantasy of Companionship for Piano and Orchestra and explores the intersection between technology and music. The work is co-created by Dr. Susan Lim, a retired surgeon and pioneer in the fields of transplantation, robotics and stem cell research. And I'm pleased to welcome her to the program. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning, Jumoke.
Tell us how this came about.
So the Fantasy of Companionship for Piano and Orchestra originally came about in 2017. I was just stepping away from surgery, having partnered with a robot in the operating room for a good period of my career. And I was used to working in isolation with a robot and inanimate. And I felt that this partnership of man and machine was something that would going forward be a companionship that could be extrapolated into other fields. And then fast forward to today, and we're seeing that there is a whole new breed of artificially intelligent companions that have crept up alongside humans simply because the world has become such a lonely place, and we have issues of social isolation and mental health issues as a result of people of all ages being lonely. And so there is a place for AI companions, but as they are portrayed in metal and as robots, they appear cold and unfriendly and threatening. And the whole objective of the Lim Fantasy is to portray a softer, more friendly, more optimistic view of the partnership of man and AI. And that's how it came about, really.
Yeah, utterly fascinating. Have you found as a co-creator, so what does that mean practically when it comes to this piece of work?
Because I am an equal half partner to the other co-creator, who is Christina Teens Tan, who sits in Los Angeles, and she is tuned in too.
Right.
I mean, she's tuned in as a listener.
Right. Well, good morning. she's listening. How fantastic. I mean, they often talk about how there is an intersection between medicine and maths and music. So this must have been a wonderful outworking of all your skills.
It is. And, to be able to share some of the new science, synthetic biology, to be able to share quantum teleportation, entanglement, and robotics in a way that is palatable, that is understanding to the public at large, what better way to do it than through music and the performing arts. And it's something that both Christina and I felt we would like to put out to the public, the benefits of the new sciences and the disruptive technologies, and look at it from an optimistic viewpoint, because of course we're not saying that AI doesn't have its challenges, but to every bad there is a good side, and this is the objective of the Lim Fantasy.
Is there something within it as well when you talk about having optimism for AI? I wonder whether you can explore for us why people, or why many people, seem to only see the darker side. Is that because they have less interaction with it, and therefore it is about the unknown rather than the known?
To that point, it's absolutely correct. Anything that is unknown is scary. But also, I think the way AI has been portrayed as it is usually embodied in metal, in robots. And it comes across as threatening. And with the fantasy of companionship, what we have is AI embodied in a plush companion, a cuddly toy. And what we wanted to do is to create a sense of warmth, because after all, AI need not be embodied just in metal. It can be embodied really in anything, in a cuddly toy, but fast forward into the future, and what the final act of the fantasy alludes to is AI will ultimately be embodied in humans. And that would be through brain-computer interfaces. And there will come a time when there will be a symbiosis of man and machine with the coming age of brain-computer interfaces. And that's the last act of the fantasy, teleportation. I'm so looking forward to sharing this piece of music with the public at large.
And just because you're an expert in this, and I'm fascinated by, on my Friday program, we talk a lot about science, or we just try and unpack, as we call it, unpack intense science. Do you have any fears about how quickly we are advancing with this technology? And if so, what are they?
I mean, yes, of course. I do read quite extensively into the coming age of AI. We're right into it. I heed all the warnings of AI, and I'm not somebody who is a pioneer in AI. I'm more a consumer.
Sure.
So I can only hope, along with members of the public, that there will be some constraint when companies introduce AI into the general public. How this is going to be achieved, really nobody knows. But in the field of medicine, there are a lot of advantages. For example, way back when I was a med student, I used to work part-time as a nurse in a nursing home to earn my keep, more or less. And we would have to lift patients. And in the home, I realized that, with robotic companions being able to lift patients, do the manual labor, and then to communicate to lonely patients, it would be such a benefit. So I'm seeing a lot of the good side of AI. And, I am an optimist. And the Lim Fantasy is an optimistic piece of music. And we just want to portray the good side of new technology, the disruptive technologies that are coming on board, and, even synthetic biology. Because after all, it is a partnership of life and non-life, man and machine, and biologic and synthetic life that we will be moving into in the coming decades.
And, of course, talking about more immediately, you've got the Royal Philharmonic Orchestra on speed dial.
I cannot tell you how my feelings since I have stepped foot into London. It's just indescribable that our fantasy has become reality. And that the music we've been listening to all of these months on the CD and on streaming platforms, my goodness, it's going to be performed live in concert. And I feel that the team has come full circle from the time that we recorded at Abbey Road in November 2019, and then there was COVID. And now we bring it back to London. The fantasy comes back to London and will be performed by a British cast of musicians, the RPO, London Voices, and the wonderful British pianist Mark Bebbington, who is a very notable advocate of British music. And the piece that you just played, Timeless, the original composer was a student when he composed it, Ron J. Danziger, who is a neurologist now. But it was orchestrated by Manu Martin. And Manu has allowed in the piece Timeless for the piano to float freely over a bed made by the orchestra. And therefore, this allows two different interpretations that we will hear. One that you've just played, which was originally recorded with an amazing pianist, Ted Josephson. And the second, which Mark Bebbington has interpreted, which is completely enchanting. I had a chance to listen to Mark when we were rehearsing. And I think for those who have a concert ticket, it would be great to listen to the two different versions of Timeless, both equally beautiful. Mark's version, I feel, is more British.
Right.
It evokes a sense of the British countryside, and it's, like I said, it's enchanting.
Well, listen, congratulations to
Thank
you and to Christine, and how exciting for you. My pleasure. It's a delight. Let me give people details so that they can also share in the joy. I was speaking there to Dr. Susan Lim. The Lim Fantasy of Companionship for Piano and Orchestra will be at Cadogan Hall on Wednesday, the 8th of July. For tickets, go to cadoganhall.com. That is cadoganhall.com, and my thanks to Dr. Susan Lim.